You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 494, our celebration of Ahmad Best. So last night, Chapter 20 of The Mandalorian aired, and in it was a surprise guest that we finally got the big reveal of who saved Grogu during the Order 66 raid of the Temple for the Jedi. And I don't know that anybody saw this coming. So we are going to talk about more things, but at least 45 minutes will be dedicated to the celebration and honoring of Ahmad Best and his comeback here in the world of Star Wars. And speaking of comeback kids, we have one with us tonight. His name is Jonesy. Knows how to spell Ahmed. Did I spell it? I forgot the H. Jonesy's with us tonight, and in rare form, Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. So this is what happens whenever you're in the green room. When Albert's doing the intro, it's always an adventure. Sometimes he'll say something and I'll correct him in the background if he thinks to look down. Yeah. Or I'll sit here, bang my head and do weird things. And then today, I just happened to look at his headline, his little tag on his name tag. If you're on the live stream, you see this. And he had misspelled Ahmed Best's name.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's spelled correctly right now.
He's already fixed it. So while he was doing it, was able to, that is a good looking mug. Look at that.
Well, thank you. Yours is not so bad either. I like what you've done with your beard. So you're talking about my coffee mug. Yeah.
Yeah, your coffee mug. That's cool.
I got this at Hobby Lobby, of all places. Even though they're closed on Sunday, which is kind of sacrilegious if you ask me, but they had this on sale for $7 or something, $6.
Yeah, for those listening, and we haven't really done a show and tell in a while, but it's a black and white mug, but it's got a lot of the original trilogy, like Darth Vader profile, Han Solo, Stormtroopers, but in a kind of a stylized art kind of way. But man, that is really epic looking.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. That's a good find. Yeah, so kind of a white with the black characters, but also the inside of it looks like it's black as well.
Yeah, it is. And then when you drink all your coffee, it says, no, it doesn't say anything. I wish I love those coffees, the mugs that have.
Actually, those are the worst ones to clean. Or they're terrible to clean, though. So the Disney ones, like the back when the Star Wars Fan Days was a thing, or whatever they used to have it at Disney World, it had these gigantic coffee cups, right? And they were awesome. I mean, the artwork is really cool. They're kind of embossed on the outside, but on the inside, you look down, and it has like an embossed Rebel logo or something like that, which looks so cool. But cleaning those is the worst because you got to get the sponge all over, in the corners of it, and it just collects. And first world problems. We have really gone off on a tangent here when we have a really exciting show tonight for everyone.
The last thing I'll say is I don't ever buy anything that's not like dishwasher safe anymore. Like, just forget it. Who has time to hand wash anything at these days? So even if it's not dishwasher safe, it still ends up in the dishwasher, and you just roll the dice. Yeah, I mean, it's like the quote from Rocky V: "If it dies, it dies. If he dies, he dies." Right? I'll just get another one. Okay, nice segue into. We'll get into opening thoughts of this show here in a little bit.
We don't really have any news, but just something. Lauren, Albert, and I met last night, and so pretty exciting things in development for what we're going to do for Star Wars Celebration. You guys are going to get several pieces of content throughout that weekend is the plan right now. So more to come on that, but just I'm so excited I had to bring it up. Not planned, not in the notes. Probably not supposed to say anything, but
no, it's
pretty
fine. No
pretty
secret.
Exciting. And Albert and I are actually going to try to get together in person to be able to do some of it too. So that's always a treat. I get to sleep under his desk.
Yep. I'll be right there with you, buddy. We'll have to figure out logistically how we space everything out in here, but there's enough room. We just got to make it work. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool to do some live shows with you here in person. And looking forward to it. I mean, we've got essentially, without getting into the finer details, basically a show every day for the most part, all right, of Celebration. There'll be some deep dives into some of the content that we're expecting to have some big reveals on. But yeah, we plan on doing quite a few shows. So look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's just like Christmas all over again every time we do have Celebration. So.
Yeah, and speaking of deep dives, our Patreon members get a deep dive into all of our exclusive content every single week. And so we wanted to give a special shout out and thank you to, in particular, the now part of the tribe members, Mike, Rob, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, and Josh. And of course, our Delusions of Grandeur members, Rod and Kathy. Thank you all so much for being a part of Patreon. If you are curious about Patreon and you just like to check it out, see the type of content we have over there, cantinacast.com/Patreon. If you just want to get early access to things, it's just $1. If you want to get access to all of our content, it really just does start at like $2 a month. It's really, really cheap, and you get all of our top 3 moments from a certain point of views, any exclusive comment hour or content hour believer episode, which of course seems to be becoming more and more relevant on the Bad Batch front. Another one to go back there and you want to watch that one. And you get both the video, which we delist from YouTube after we go live. So you only get the video on Patreon after that initial release. And of course you get all the exclusive Patreon content as well.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff. We hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it for you.
And we are not cheap. It's inexpensive, Jonesy. It's value.
We are a value-driven organization.
That's right. Yeah, entity.
And
you want to give some quick shout outs to the people that have already shown up?
Oh yeah, speaking of that, yeah, so cantinacast.com/YouTube if you'd like to join us on the live stream. Like these wonderful folks, Nase, Gary, Jonathan, Dale, Lauren, Sky, Steph, and Miss Sunflower. So far, we see you people in the background too. Don't be shy. Come out and say hello. We love having everybody out there. We love the interaction. We love the ideas. We love the corrections and the different ideas that come about as we go through the show. And we love throwing them up on the screen and sharing them with everyone. So we hope you enjoy that as well.
Okay. You may dispense with the pleasantries. I am here to get you back on track. So, schedule. So this episode, Chapter 20, The Foundling, Carl Weathers broke this a few days before it came out. We talked about that. And we actually had said there was probably going to be multiple meanings for this title because that's just kind of what they've been doing with Star Wars as of late, specifically The Mandalorian. But directed by Carl Weathers, written by Jon Favreau. Dave Filoni had a hand in the writing as well. I think we probably all know what parts he wrote, which we'll get to here in just a bit. But Give me your opening thoughts, because I've already gushed and already said this was a celebration of Ahmad Best, even though I couldn't spell his name. I want to hear kind of your thoughts, having watched it now a few times, because we did have some initial conversation. We had a good laugh last night about some of the things that we felt like worked and didn't work. But at the end of the day, I would just probably summarize that you enjoyed the episode. Yeah.
I'm being told to. Wait, hold on. Lauren's on the line. Yes, Jonesy enjoyed the episode. I can confirm. I gave it a hard time in some areas because it is a little bit comical, but you got to have fun with this stuff. But overall, yeah, a really good episode, enjoyable episode. I love in particular, the development we continue to get for Bo-Katan. Her admitting to the armor was a really key moment, I think, and was really exciting. Definitely, we got the answers that we were looking for with Grogu, of course, and who actually saved him. None of us saw that one coming, which is pretty cool that they did find a way to surprise us. It's always fun to see clone troopers and that interaction and go back to Coruscant. Again, there were some, how well did we actually do it? In some ways you can nitpick on around, but as far as the story is concerned and the way that they present it to you, it's really difficult to argue that we didn't get everything that we wanted. It was really enjoyable, all the nitpicking aside. But what about you? What's your initial thoughts on it?
Well, I have like a whole list here. So,
okay.
Yeah, but
it's supposed to be a very high level summary. I don't know if we've talked about this, but
I don't do well with high level summaries.
Not 30-minute in detail, high level summary, and then we get to the rest of the show.
And then we get into the rest of the breakdown. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so first off, short episode, shorter than I think we were expecting. People were talking about how this was going to be 30 minutes. I did the math, and after you remove the minute and 16 seconds at the very beginning, the 4 minutes and 42 seconds at the very end for credits and everything else, you're hitting around 6 minutes. You subtract that from a 26-minute or 34th or whatever it was, all in, it's like 26 total.
Yeah.
So I think this may be the shortest episode that we've ever had of The Mandalorian. Now, that said, it was kind of dense. I mean, they did pack in quite a few things. I don't think I was expecting all of that to happen in that short period of time, good or bad. I think some things we could have sat with a little bit more. Some things felt like we were just kind of running through them and checking the boxes, and I was totally on board with it. Like, I mean, this isn't criticism. It just felt a little more fast paced than I was used to with the Mandalorian stuff. I would say the way, though, I would summarize this episode, though, it's more of Favreau and Filoni playing with action figures. I mean, there's a suspension of disbelief that has to go into some of these episodes, and maybe in this episode more than others. But it's just fun to watch. And like, we're seeing things in Star Wars that I don't think we've ever thought was going to happen. Just quickly getting back to Ahmed Best. there's somebody I actually follow on Twitter that predicted this back in 2022, and I may have shared this with you or Lauren or somebody else. I forget now. I took a screenshot of it, but they had said, "Wouldn't it be cool if," or whatever. And I'm paraphrasing, but they were the only person that I was aware of that had said this was. And of course, they to this day, I think every 10 minutes they're reposting that, letting everyone know that they did call this back in 2019 or whatever it was.
That's pretty.
So,
awesome.
But yeah, I mean, no one saw this coming for the most part, right? Which I think is great because, for one, this really gave Best a second chance, if you will, on Star Wars. And I went out on Twitter and was kind of outspoken about people using the word redemption. In fact, like Rolling Stone used the word redemption for Ahmed Best, and I thought that was it's not appropriate. I mean, maybe call it bad choice of words or whatever else, but redemption implies they did something wrong. Right. And Best never did anything wrong, right? His whole purpose was to go out there, portray the character that George Lucas had gave him, be the comedy and the thing that kids would look up to. And I think that's what was lost at the time back in 99 is people that were my age or older were looking at this and going, this is so stupid. This is this and all that went on Best. And we don't need to get into the history of him. I mean, he's publicly been out there and talked about how he almost killed himself at one point. He almost threw himself off a bridge because he was dealing with the backlash. Nobody in Hollywood would ever bring him in. And when he finally got this gig, I'm trying to remember if the gig for Jedi Temple, what is the Archive? No, that's our
Academy.
What Academy? I'm trying to remember if that was before his announced or before he came out on stage in 2019. Do you remember at Celebration when he came out on stage and he had like this? I mean, it felt like 10 minutes, but it was really 60 seconds standing ovation, which was longer than anyone else, rightfully due as well. But that was the first signs of people he was really starting to become accepted for and respected for the work that he did, right? But this in itself, right? So that was kind of like a bone, if you will, him being, Kelleron in that show. And it was a YouTube show. It never really made it to Disney Plus. And I think most people were pretty happy with the fact that, he was given his due and he was kind of back in the Star Wars community. But this just kind of solidifies his name forever, canonically. And the fact that they've given him this opportunity to kind of be that character again, expand upon that character, have the impact that he has. I mean, this isn't some minor role. I mean, this is a significant role that's still to be determined with Grogu and where Grogu is going to go eventually, which we all expect to be kind of a major character in Star Wars history. This is a big deal for him. So when they showed him, I literally jumped up and I said Jar Jar Binks. And when he said Kelleron, I said Jar Jar Binks because to me, Best and Jar Jar have always been synonymous. And
right.
I mean, it was just I was posted on Twitter. I said that I went to bed with my heart happy. I woke up with my heart happy. I just really feel for this guy and the fact that he's just front and center again in Star Wars, and he's gotten his due, and I couldn't be happier for him, and honestly for Star Wars for giving him the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see good people, especially people who have overcome adversity, be able to get that. And again, I think redemption is absolutely the wrong word, with this kind of second opportunity or a more prominent opportunity to come back and be a part of that lore. And again, a completely different generation is now celebrating Ahmed Best, where another generation really had a difficult time with the character of Jar Jar Binks, right? And to really delineate between the two. And so it's really great to be able to see that. I think it's really cool to see a Star Wars Kids YouTube channel character come into the forefront, right? I mean, and this gives you hope for other characters. And we start to see this slowly starting to happen, when you talk about characters and moments and name drops that come from the High Republic or the books or even from Legends, this type of bringing these characters front and center, name dropping, giving them a bit of a backstory, giving them a purpose, giving them renewed life, it's just so much fun. And to be able to pull that from really small kid material and content and bring that into our content, if you will, for kind of lack of a better word, it's just a lot of fun. It's really cool. I mean, the aesthetics of the character is really cool. It's really funny. I don't know if you can see it, but this lightsaber, well, I'm going to break everything in my office now to try to do this. There we go. So I don't know if you noticed, but this lightsaber is the lightsaber that Ahmed Best uses on that kids channel.
Oh, nice.
For Keller and Beck. So it's from Galaxy's Edge. It's it's just one of their standard lightsabers, but he has it wrapped and things like that. So it's a little bit different, but you can actually go build this yourself.
That's
and
cool. I like the ornate design on that too.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and that's why I picked it several years ago. It's really fantastic. And so this is why people are going to go to the Galaxy's Edge. They're going to see this and be like, oh my gosh, it's, and it's going to have this renewed interest, even though I think it's one of the best ones anyway.
Yeah. No, it does look really good.
And now I've got a whole cleanup effort to do in here, but that's fine. It was worth it.
Yeah, there's stuff falling in the background. Who knows? It's all falling apart back there right now.
Yeah, Darth Maul Lego took a tumble. Ahsoka
I saw
Lego.
him.
Yeah.
At least he wasn't cutting too. It just looked like he was whole at least as he fell down.
He was still whole, but we'll see if his head survived this time. But
yeah.
But anyways, but it's still really cool to see those characters come to life. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't like the word redemption. I saw your tweet with Rolling Stone. I'm glad you called him out because I think it's just unnecessary stoking of that. And I get where they were probably coming from. I assume good intentions, but it still kind of sucks that we can't get over ourselves in that way. And I really do believe it's just us getting over ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and it's that people ran with that and people started retweeting and using that word redemption. And I don't want that narrative. I was trying to do whatever I could to, subdue that narrative because that's not at all what happened here. Right. And
it's exciting. It's exciting. We can celebrate Ahmed Best like individually again and just say, hey, you do have now your moment that you feel welcomed, not only by the prequel trilogy lovers, but now like this other era of people that maybe were a little harder on you too. And that we've finally maybe married the two together, but that feels really good. So I'm glad for that opportunity.
Yeah. So, okay. So all that aside, and we'll get to more of that here in a little bit because Lauren was talking about the details. I mean, the details are all just cherry on top in terms of like his outfit and he's dual wielding. He had a nickname in the show. I forget. It had something to do with like lightsaber, or it wasn't the hand because that was somebody else. But either way, he was known. His character was supposed to have been known for wielding lightsabers, like dual wielding lightsabers or whatever. And so we got to see that in this episode. So true to the character that they had established even in this YouTube Kids show.
And he was also a teacher, right? So he was a teacher of the younglings. So it makes sense that he went after Grogu specifically as well.
Yep.
So again, that character brought to life in its truest form.
That's it. Sabered hand. That was thanks, Jeff. Oh, Dale came. Oh, okay. And Lauren, sorry. I had a little bit delay. Okay, guys, I get it. I got it wrong. You got it right.
That's why we have the best listeners. They know everything.
Yeah. The sabered hand. So very cool to see him live up to that name live on television. So just quickly, the other stuff that I guess the other stuff that's not a mod best because there really was other things that happened.
Oh, really?
I'm with you. Like, Bo-Katan's character continues to be very interesting, very intriguing in terms of where this is going. I got a lot of questions at the end of this episode. And I also felt like the setting. We're talking about the setting. I had it listed as the Land of the Lost because that's what it reminds me of. And if you've ever watched, and I mean Land of the Lost, like if you grew up in the 70s, and I know there's not a lot of us. Yeah, it's a TV show, and I think they did a reboot later with television.
Will Ferrell did a movie, I think.
Yeah, Will Ferrell was in it, right? But so much of the setting and like just where they are feels like very Land of the Lost. And honestly, like Favreau is not much older than me, Filoni as well. So like I would imagine they're leaning into some of that stuff with the design of where they are on this planet. And a lot has been said about like why are all these like environmental like things risks and out there. And I got some whack theories as to why they've picked this planet of all planets where people can just get swooped away at a moment's time. So we'll get into all a little bit later. But again, overall, I think it was for what they did in 26 minutes and the fact that we got on my best. I mean, that's just, I don't know. It was a great episode through and through. So even all the other stuff aside, and we'll touch on some of the stuff that was just kind of like, suspension of disbelief or, practical effects that felt more Star Warsy than we want to admit. So more on that in a little bit, but I got a question.
I like where we're going with Paz Vizsla too. I like the direction we've steered that character a little bit and the journey that we're seeing that. So I'm excited to talk a lot about the Mandalorian scenes themselves. I think we're really good.
Yep. I just saw Jeff. Yeah. Everyone yell at Albert. Thanks, Jeff.
We all have our lot in life.
Still waiting on your article, buddy. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. Hurry, get that submitted, will you? Okay, so let's talk about the opening credits just quickly, because I don't know if anybody else has noticed this or picked up on this, but so when they show all the helmets, like they've historically, every helmet that's blue is a good helmet. Every helmet that's red is a bad helmet. But in this intro, for whatever reason, they show Din Djarin's helmet last, and it's red. I don't know why. I'm not saying they're implying. Maybe somebody just screwed up when they were putting the lighting in there. But mark the time and mark this episode so we can come back and say we told you so, or not.
I'm not going down that road with
I know you're not. Like you can see, you've got pursed lips right now. You're not going to say a thing. Okay, so let's get into this Mando train. It opens up with them again in this land of lost. They're sitting there doing all this. I mean, they're kicking and flying and hand-to-hand combat. I mean, and there looked like there were way more people than there were in episode 1. So I don't know if they're continuing to recruit, or the first episode of the season, I should say. Or, all the other people were still, on shifts or cooking food. Who knows what they were doing in the caves. But yeah, we got to see, a lot of them doing Mandalorian things. Like, it just seems like was kind of cool. Like, we're pulling back the curtain. We're getting to get some insights into what Mandalorian culture's like, right? Weapons are our religion. Well, apparently combat and every, training all day, every day seems to be part of that as well.
Yeah, and the idea of like when is it appropriate for the younglings to start, or not younglings, I guess the apprentices to be more specific. When do they begin training as well? What are the different training regimens that are going on? And so it was good to see that in action. I think it was just great to be able to see Mandalorians, like, what do they do with their free time? I mean, clearly this makes sense that they would be out there fighting and training and learning to shoot and all the things. And so it's great that we get that insight into what does a day in the life look like, and what is that interaction between the different levels of apprentices. I like that with Ragnar, we see that arrogance come through, and it makes so much sense that he's Paz Vizsla's son,
he's a
right?
Vizsla.
Right, yeah. So it just makes so much sense in that regard. But again, it's great to be able to see the interactions though as well with Grogu, and have Grogu actually become, begin his training of sorts, like his actual real indoctrination into what it means to be a Mandalorian through and through, not just the creed and the psychological aspect of it, or the indoctrination of a code and the belief system, but also what does it actually mean for training and for getting your mind and your body in the right place, and your abilities and developing, as well as that social interaction. So it's great to be able to see him start to get integrated and not just left on the sideline.
Yeah. And we'll get to more on Ragnar here, especially when we get into the fight. But we got to see Grogu sitting there. I like everyone else thought he was moving rocks at first. Turns out he was probably sizing up his next meal, because he was probably going to eat those shell crabs or whatever the heck they were.
I was totally waiting for Din Djarin to come by and say, "No, those are not food. You don't
Right.
want it. That's one you don't want to eat."
I was more concerned that the baby was that close to the water, given this massive crocodile has been known to come out and just swoop in and eat things. Like, again, just parent negligence, Din. Get it straight, dude. Like, you don't leave your baby out there that close to the water.
Well, but they were in the water the last time, so.
Oh, man, crocodiles have known to come out.
I get your point.
Snap whole people. Okay, and here's something else, too. Like, there was some verbiage that was kind of tossed around for the Mandalorians, and I think this is in line with Legends, but so we got foundlings, right? And then the next level up is an apprentice. So Din talks about this is him, and that's it's interesting because those are kind of similar, like foundling, apprentice, youngling, Padawan, right? There's almost a direct parallel or comparison between the two. At least as stages, right? This is the stage that they go to before they get to. I don't know what the last stage for Mandalorians is. Is it Mandalorian? I don't know. Warrior, whatever it is, or whatever formal title is. But from there, it would be Jedi Knight and then Jedi Master, of course, right? So it does sound like there's at least some hierarchy here in terms of how they level up, right, for people. Din calls Grogu his ward, so not a parent, but a ward, somebody who watches over him. And then they get into this thing. Like, this was almost going to be like, it was almost comical at first, because I was like, seriously, he's going to put this like small football up against this kid, right, to go, and then they pick darts, and I thought, well, how the heck is that going to work? Because it didn't turn out to be like. They didn't really, Bo-Katan does her best to put it on his wrist, but it was almost like a shoulder-mounted weapon, given the size of these.
It's more of a sleeve than a wrist mount, yeah.
Than a wrist mount. But, so that was interesting. We also got to hear about the, him being too young to speak, right? So Ragnar kind of pushed back and was like, hey, how come he doesn't have an helmet? And I think officially the word is, well, because he can't speak, therefore he can't speak the creed, and it's until you speak the creed that you can go without a helmet. So if you never So I guess when is he going to get a helmet? Like, I guess he's going to have to speak, right? Because I imagine they're going to swear him in officially at some point as a Mandalorian. So, and when that happens, he's going to have some weird looking helmet. Are the ears going to stick out? Are they not going to stick out?
I don't know. They're just going to cut holes in it. They just have to modify it. Maybe they'll just
I'm waiting. I
build
can't wait
ears,
to see that design.
build ears into the helmet.
Or maybe it's just like an oblong helmet to cover the ears. Like he's just going to be a weird looking Mandalorian.
He just falls over all the time because he's too heavy topside.
Right. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I like the counterpoint to that though too, and I don't have the quote in front of me unfortunately. But what Din Djarin says back to Ragnar, which of course then is recited back later on by Paz Vizsla as well, right? Of knowing when to speak basically, and you know sometimes knowing when sometimes knowing what to do is to say nothing, right? And unless you know that type of thing, I'm sure you've got a rummage around there somewhere, but.
Yeah, it says one does not speak unless one knows.
Right, yeah. And so again, that goes back to leaning on experience, right? And leaning and going through living life and having experience what you don't know, and not having the arrogance to say that you have no idea who your opponent is, and not taking that for granted. And every situation determines your focus, and you must have that focus in order to really be successful and keep everyone around you alive. It's a leadership trait as well, right? So it's that wisdom that he needs to be imparted, and sometimes it's the weakest one, the perceived weakest one in the bunch. You think you have nothing to learn from, but you have the opportunity if you just open your mind to it. And so, and I mean, Grogu's very unique, right? And again, this is something the Mandalorians don't necessarily see in these younglings. And what's really crazy though is that he just got his helmet. Even if we say he just got his helmet a few months ago, dude, how old are you? Like, how long did it take you to get yours? You little turd. I mean, come on.
Well, and I get it. I know what you're saying. I would say that as someone who's in youth programs with boys in particular, for most of my life, this is not uncommon, right? At the age of 8, they have figured out life. Like they know everything about life, right? And this is not exclusive to boys. I can only speak to boys with any kind of professional opinion, but they know everything about life. They have all the answers. That's what he was saying. He's like, well, I know. I mean, Rangar tells him, he said, when one does not speak unless one knows, he's like, well, I know. Like that confidence, the arrogance, right, is there. And I love Mando's response about perhaps this lesson is for you then, right? Here's going to be a life lesson. We're going to humble you. This is going to be good for you, right? You're going to learn a lot from this. So it was a good, it was a very interesting parenting moment that they kind of snuck in there, and very typical of kids this age, particularly boys. And God, you can't imagine how cocky and arrogant a Mandalorian, kid could be at that age, right?
Especially after you're getting your helmet and you feel like you're a big badass, and you feel like you're finally you're finally accepted. You're finally, grown. Of course, at the end, we see these little kids that had helmets already too. So not sure what your deficiency there is at Ragnar, but welcome to the club. Yeah. But still, I think it was a great moment though between Din and Grogu as well, though, of telling Grogu and giving him that confidence of saying, no, you can show who you are to these people. This is your family. These are our people. We need to be open with them and be transparent. There's not going to be some negative repercussion. You don't have to. You can start to let go of some of that fear and start to build that confidence, right? And as his steward or his ward or whatever you want to call it, his dad, it's a great opportunity for them to make that connection. And again, reflect that trust back onto Din that says, okay, I will open myself up to be able to do this and show it to these people, even though this is a very big group of people. And you see by the end of it, everyone's watching. Yeah. Right. And so it is a really big moment for him to be able to, for Grogu to be able to say, okay, fine, I'll give you an idea about what I can do. And then he cheats at the end by shooting 3 shots instead of just 1. Ragnar was trying to be disciplined, but then he cheated. Little green monster.
Here, I have a different take on that. And again, this goes back to my experience with boys of this age. The other thing that they do is they will find ways around the rules. Whatever the rules are, just throw them out the door. They're going to find loopholes and stuff in the systems. And so I don't know, maybe the way I read this was, it sounded like you could take all 3 shots, but then you're out of shots, right? So you got to make them count kind of thing. Gotcha. I know people have been saying where Grogu cheated, and I just don't think Ragnar was expecting him to fire all 3. I thought he was thinking they were going to go 1-to-1, play a strategic game of like, okay, I've missed 1, I've only got 2, I'm going to hopefully he'll miss kind of thing. I don't think he was at all expecting Grogu to be able to like, no, I'm firing all three right now. I'm going to hit all three of them because he has the ability to do that. So a little slightly different take on that, but I think it was comedic, and I think it was supposed to be comedic, right? And
Oh, sure.
either way, you get that kind of comes through there. I want to go to the chat because there's a lot of funny comments in here that I don't want to gloss over too quickly here. Let's see. So Miss Sunflower says Ragnar may be cocky, but he still chose a challenge that seems fair for Grogu. Lauren says Ragnar was like, y'all see this as a little baby, right? Because I think that's exactly what he was looking at too. He's looking at like,
right.
Well, here you go. Jeff said it better.
No respect for his opponent.
Yeah. Jeff says, honestly, I thought Ragnar showed some restraint by not asking if he could simply kick Grogu.
Don't kick the baby. I told you this was South Park.
So yeah, and then we'll get into the name Ragnar, because we were talking about this last night. Lauren, myself, Jonesy. We'll get into his character, and I've got some predictions there because of the name. And now that we know he's a Vizsla, I think Jeff had the same idea. I don't know that Paz will be around for a whole lot longer, just given history. But more on that a little bit later. So they have the fight. He wins, which is good. It was a very humbling moment, especially for Ragnar there. And then we get this attack. I think Lauren is our resident dinosaur expert now. So I don't know what level. I don't even have this spelled right. Pterodactyl, whatever this thing looked like,
right.
Kind of swoops in broad daylight, steals Ragnar, flies off. And then we get Bo, Din, Paz, and I'm calling him Rando Mando, or Randy, if you want to call him Randy, fly after this thing. But this is a scene where I was like, there was a scene in like a couple episodes ago where Din was like harping on the fact that you got to watch your fuel. That way, you know how far you can go. Apparently they didn't do this. I get it. They were all caught up in the moment trying to save the child. And maybe they weren't expecting this thing to go and be living as far out as it was. But later on, we also learned that this is not the first time this has happened either.
Right.
So on this topic, just quickly, the thing I had was like, it seems very fitting to me, at least, that the Mandalorians, as combat ready as they are, as as deft as they are when it comes to fighting and all that stuff, like it seems like this would be a challenge for them. Like they would openly accept this place because of the dangers that exist around them, and almost see it as this will keep us on our toes kind of thing, even if it does mean, the occasional loss of a child. It seems like a small price to pay to ensure that the Mandalorians continue to keep an edge on them. But that's how I rationalized why they continue to live in this environment and not just go to some icy planet where no one lives like everybody else does in Star Wars. But what are your thoughts?
Man, it's hard to disconnect of like, it just makes something interesting. You need to have some sort of diversity. And I want to say that they probably do it somewhat intentionally, right? You have to be on your toes for your environment. You have to be able to be aware that what's around you can't always be comfortable with that either. But there might also be other benefits to this. I mean, there is a lot of outcroppings with the rocks. There seems to be caves. They've set up shop. Continuing to move that is more and more challenging each time, right? Setting this up. Paz is probably sick of hooking up cables and rocks. Doesn't make any sense, but for the forge and all of that. But I think it's a good spot for them. It probably serves a lot of needs, and they just have to continue to learn and deal with the environment that they have. And again, that they've not done more though with detection systems and all of that. Yeah, it's kind of, you can't really call it sloppy storytelling, because it does bring opportunity for excitement and for unpredictability, which I think is fun. But yeah, I think this is just one of those things you just can't read too much into about why they continue to stay here, even though clearly all of the signs in this environment are saying, hey, you probably might want to think about something else.
Yeah. Well, I saw that too. Someone's like, how come they don't have advanced warning systems or tech and all that? But, I hadn't really put a lot of thought into that until like the second viewing, when the armor is talking to Bo-Katan. Essentially, she says, look, I can't give you all the fancy tech that you're used to because of,
Right.
So, so from that perspective, I would think, the Children of the Watch, they're not primitives, but they're very basic people. They're like the baseline minimum, they don't get into the fancy stuff. They're all about just the staple requirement, whatever they need to survive kind of thing. And so, that probably is just beyond something they would even do or even consider doing.
Yeah, they're still
because of all the reasons we
nomadic.
just talked about.
Yeah, and they're still nomadic, right? I mean,
Right. Sure.
in order to maintain that ability of picking up and going, you don't really set down a lot of permanent routes. And again, they are very capable people of taking care of themselves. They are flying very low under the radar. Do they have an escape plan? Those things are probably more important to them too. Hey, if we need to abandon the physical location of the covert again, like what's our go plan? Where's your go bag? The more the functional things of day-to-day life about what it means to pick up and move rather than worry about some of these other environmental factors that they should be able to handle anyway. And again, even though we know later on that this has happened before with stealing kids, and we don't know how many times. Maybe it's just a couple of times. Maybe it's recent. Whatever it might be. And clearly they haven't pursued this enough times to really know all of the details about the creature and about where it lives and about how many times. So I'm guessing this is probably only the second, maybe the third time. And this is just the farthest they've gotten into that process. And likely because of just Bo-Katan being able to jump in the ship right away.
Yeah.
Not having the knee-jerk reaction, which again just tells me that this is still pretty fresh. And again, probably just the second or third time overall has this happened.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give him Father of the Year award for, saying that this is it always gets away. And of course, this is the big deal, right? We learned that this is his kid right here at this point,
right?
That's his son. And I guess what I would say just quickly, if you look at and dang it, Lauren brought. I mean, I brought up. I know there's some history there with the character of Ragnar, or I think he was a Scottish king or something like that. Eventually, he becomes the king of something at some point, right? But where I was going with this is it does fall in line with the Vizslas being like this kind of royal lineage, even though they're not currently in power. I do wonder if Paz has got a short life at this point, because it would be fitting for. And I was going to say this for the very end, but last night I was talking crazy talk. I said that Ragnar could be potentially somebody that would eventually become the leader of the Mandalorians, right? He's got it in his name. The Vizsla group is there. You have this trope of this child who's constantly, weak or always getting picked on or always getting beaten up or always under attack, like somebody said in the chat, and yet perseveres through all of that or becomes somebody super strong, super important because of those things, right? I could see a storyline at some point where he does eventually become, ruler of Mandalore at some point. So
I think it's more about what Paz views his lineage as, I think, more than anything else, right? Whether he's actually going to be capable of all of that remains to be seen. A name is what someone else has given you. It's not what you gave yourself, and it's not necessarily predetermined your destiny. But again, it speaks to the Vizsla line, and at least Paz as a character specifically, of saying that my lineage is important. It is top tier. It is, the cream of the crop, and my heir will be treated as such, as an heir, and he will be recognized as an heir, even with the strongest of names. And again, we know that Ragnar is rooted in Norse mythology and a lot of all the connotations that go with that. And of course, it's very steeped in Mandalorian culture, right? A lot of this is built off that groundwork, right, of those themes. Mm-hmm. And so it makes a lot of sense that Paz would buy into that. And we see this throughout our own history of, I've named you after my father's father, who was this amazing king, or I've named you after Thor or something. We see this a lot. So it's not necessarily uncommon. It doesn't define your trajectory in life, but it definitely defines your family's opinion about what your trajectory either should be or could be or will be, at least in their perspective.
Yeah. So Gary came through here. Viking mythology. Ragnar Lothbrok is the full name of that character.
Right.
And then Jeff says, Ragnar, the regurgitated redeemer of Mandalore.
Jeff is a wordsmith, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, it just rolls off the tongue. I can't wait to see that underneath the throne there, or on the plate next to the throne. So, okay. So Bo-Katan is the only smart one here, of course. And so she jumps now. That's not fair, but she jumps in her.
That's true, but yeah.
Well, yeah, true. Right. She jumps in her gauntlet, chases after it. That's a beautiful shot. Apocalypse Now. There was Force Awakens, I think. Was it Force Awakens? They did this shot as well. Yeah. Whatever it is, right? They've done it many times. Ships or something flying in the background, in silhouette because of the sun in the background. This was amazing. I really enjoyed that shot.
It was beautiful.
I love that they held on it as long as they did. so she goes out, comes back, and so now she's kind of starting. She's leading up this basic search party or hunting party, as it's called. She knows what the lair is. She's the one that recommends putting a hunting party together. And we kind of get some I guess some backfill on what's happened before. Like they've apparently, when they've gone after this thing, if they get too close, the thing hears it and it eats whatever child or thing that it's captured.
Yeah, if they shoot it, it gets scared and it kills it. I don't know if it eats it, but it kills it. Probably rips it apart with its claws. Yeah.
So yeah, it's and then she tells it it's on a peak, so they can't really just land on the peak. They're gonna have to climb up the peak. No, and they can't really just park right there. They're gonna have to park a ways. They're gonna park and walk it in. So we get all that. They also mentioned the.
Can we back up just a second though? Why do you think Bo felt like so compelled to really? I mean, she didn't. I think the armor really told her that she should lead the party. But why do you think she was so forthcoming with being the one with all of the ideas and having that energy and that kind of, I don't know if it was responsibility, but just being the one to say, here's what it is, here's what I think we should do, and taking that leadership role? Do you think that's just what she does, or do you think it's something specific to the scenario or trying to prove her worth, or it's just, no, she just believes in taking care of their people in general? Like, what do you think the reasoning behind all that is?
Yeah, so I think the simple reason is just that's her personality. Like she's always been in a position of leadership. She's always been in a position of protecting her people, right? And she's accepted for now, at least, and maybe forever, that these are her people. And so so that coupled with the fact that she has the intel, she's probably done this many times. This is well within her wheelhouse. This is not a big deal for her, right? She's led many hunting parties. She had all the intel. She knows exactly what needs to do. I mean, for her, it's an opportunity, but I don't think she's looking at it from an opportunity. Like, it is an opportunity, but I don't think she's coming at it from that perspective. What kind of makes me feel that way even more is at the very end, when the armor is telling her that she's gotten the highest honor of Mandalore, right? We're saving a foundling. Like, I can't tell what she's seeing or what she's looking or how she's looking under the helmet, but I almost got a sense that was like a shock to her. Like, she never even really thought about it. Like, that was an unconscious decision that she made for the good of the child. And not knowing that, wow, I just did something that really, at least in their eyes, is kind of like the highest regard of maybe that was at some point, widely known and widely accepted across all of the tribes. But for whatever reason, maybe that fell off for her group, right? And for them, the Watch, this is still a big deal. So I think it was just her leadership skills, her good kindness that led her there. But then she's the one that, with the experience and has the knowledge and all that it just made sense for her to do. I don't think she was doing it for any selfish reasons, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree with you. I don't think there was any non-altruistic moment. It was more of a reactionary response anyway, of just your good nature says you go after and you do what you can. I think there's a certain amount of, I think one maybe difference in that one is I think she does feel like there is a certain amount of responsibility to give something back to this group of people that have welcomed her in, and maybe not earn her keep, but also just to say, I am here and I will be part of the overall solution. I will be part of, our people moving forward. I will be part of this tribe throughout the time that I'm here. Right. And kind of adopting those ways and feeling like she is contributing in some kind of way. Mm-hmm. And I'm with you. I mean, she had all the intel, so it makes sense that she would lead, and that the armor would assign her that, or give her that opportunity, that honor, I guess, to be able to go on this mission and try to do so. And I'm with you. I think afterwards, I didn't notice any, and there were no tells, or at least anything that she was proud of herself, or had this certain level of achievement for saving the kid and anticipating being rewards being reaped upon her, or right. The armor showing her the, I don't know if you want to call it the kindness or the respect, maybe is maybe more accurate. Yeah, that she showed her later on with replacing the pauldron and so on and so forth. But I do like, though, that I think there is a component, though, that she was trying to fill a need and fill a role within this community when everyone else was having this knee-jerk reaction. She did have the moment to pause and still do the right thing and give something back to this group of people that have opened their door to her. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk quickly about so they mentioned the Shriek Hawk training team. She says that we don't ever hear that again. I guess these are the guys these are the rando mandos that they take with them on this mission that, some of them probably died. I don't know. I thought they would do more with that, but I don't know, maybe that name will come up a little bit later. But anytime they give us proper names, proper nouns, it always makes you like wonder, okay, so why did we have to name that? Are they going to come up later? Maybe they don't.
I like to have I like that they have strike teams basically, right?
Yeah, right.
And they have them named. That makes sense rather than just saying, take a squad of troopers and do this. You know, it's like, no, you have a hunting party. These are our top hunters. Let's go do it. You know, and that they're just ready to go to an extent.
Yeah. Okay, so they take off. Poor Grogu's standing there watching yet again as everyone leaves, and he's left with a babysitter. This time, quite a astute babysitter in the armor, and she takes him back and says, "Come on, Grogu. You know, if you wish to be a Mandalorian, there is much work to attend to." And I thought, "Oh man, well, we're gonna get a montage here of some sorts, right? She's training him or teaching him ways." But what we got was interesting. I really liked this whole piece of it. And I wish this is the stuff that we eat up, right? Because it's all the mythology of everything. Well, let's just talk about the walk, because I know you had some. So when Grogu,
I wasn't going to mention it.
I was going to mention it. I'm going to mention it because this is the part that I thought was like so Star Warsy that I think people are missing the point. Like when Grogu turns to walk and starts waddling, like little like tuk, 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 left, and you mentioned his what is his right hand? I guess is just kind of dangling there. I mean, that's all part of it. I would. I mean, they could have done CGI and fixed all of that, but there's just something aesthetically like I don't know, warm and I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, familiar, I guess, about this puppet. And then we were starting joking last night about how every time they throw the baby around, it's just a puppet and it looks hilarious, but I don't know what we would expect, again, unless they did CGI. So I enjoyed it, but I do get that it does look a little weird, but I just like his little shuffle, his little walk, even though it does look like someone's just pushing that little puppet along there.
Yes, I have been threatened in the background by by one of our constituents here in the show.
He's right there on the screen right now.
She's right there on the show. Yes, that if I say any ill will, then my life is forfeit. So I will refrain.
The puppets.
And it was all in good. It was all in good fun. It is a little bit awkward to kind of see it. It was. I laughed, and I didn't roll my eyes actually, but I did laugh. I was like, "You're kidding me, right?" But it was funny to watch Grogu run, or what equates to a run in his world, I suppose.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all we'll say there. Okay. So she says, the Forge, the heart of the Mando culture. This is good. This reaffirms something we had speculated, like maybe it was last season, I think. Yeah. We were talking about the Forge and the importance of the Forge and all that. It was kind of hit here a little bit harder.
It is the central. Yeah, it's the central, really heart of the Mandalorians, because everything is made and remade from it, right? And we are remade and reshaped from it. So it was really great to get all this kind of just this depth to it. Nothing really new, but just this depth to it and this reaffirmation of the importance.
Yep. And then she also mentions that just as we shape the Mandalorian steel, we shape ourselves. You know, we all begin as raw ore. And all this is just an analogy of, you know, we all start off as one person. Over time, things shape us, right? We shape ourselves, but outside forces shape who we are. They change who we are. You know, very similar to what we were talking about with Ragnar, right? All of these events that are happening at some point are going to shape him into a person that he is, right or wrong, good or bad. All of this stuff plays into who we become. And there's, of course, free will in there, too. I mean, not saying you're all predestined, but that's essentially what she's trying to get through to him is like, you know, hey, look, dude, you may not look like us, you may be different, but you are who we are. And at some point, you know, you're going to come into your own, and we're going to refine you through all the trials and adversity. You're going to become this Mandalorian and part of the clan and all that. But she says the Forge can also reveal weaknesses. And this is where we get they didn't, so I haven't put too much thought into this, but the fact that she said the Forge reveals weaknesses, and it's in that moment that we begin to see that pulverizer banging, and we start seeing Grogu's face, and we get, you know, he's kind of taking steps backwards into this flashback. I don't know if there was anything there. Like, what weakness would she be kind of talking about? I mean, the weakness that he's got trauma, that he's having to deal with the trauma. And because I think this is, I mean, and we kind of skipped over this, and I want to let you speak here, but when they were doing the risk combat, right? Part of that for me was like, oh, he's still like traumatized. Like we knew he was always hesitant to use his force powers. He's been through some stuff. We kind of know what that looks like now a little bit, at least some of it. But I did wonder if like what she was alluding to as a weakness, maybe what he went through, or do you think there's anything in that she would end on that, and then we get the flashback into what happened with Order 66?
Yeah, I think that's why it was important for Din to tell him it was okay and to really make it a more welcoming environment where he felt comfortable with it. But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
the armorer sees it, right? She still sees that fear. And I guess trauma probably is the best word for it. Yeah, it's just we're unable to make progress because we can't let go. We can't accept and move on from certain things. And I don't want to shortchange what moving on means because it's very different for everyone. And it's a very different journey for everyone to be able to accomplish that and overcome that type of adversity and these really extreme, situations. And I think the Mandalorians, from Grogu's perspective, Mandalorians are probably some of the best to show him what it means to be hunted and to not only stand up for what you believe, but also run when it makes sense to run and also recover and regroup and rebuild. And in her words, reforge yourself, right? And identify the things that don't work, this weakness in the armor, the weakness in our soul that limit us from really truly becoming who we're meant to be and who we might be able to be. And so I think it's really important for him to be able to hear some of these things that they exist in all of us, right? We're
Yeah.
going to see it in all of us. But it's important that we hammer that out. We understand that we find it so we can do something about it. And the forge in our lives is going to be our peers around us as well as life experience, right? And so we have to use that and fuel that and to make a difference of what we want to be.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's kind of, you said it better than I did. I was trying to draw those two together, but that's exactly where I was trying to go. So yeah, I think once he gets past all that, and I think we'll see him get past all that, right? Of course. Either,
You know what really helps us solve all that stuff though, Albert, is a belt buckle.
Well, okay, so let's get to the Order 66 stuff, and then we'll talk about the belt buckle,
Right?
Which is what I christened it, because it really is. It's just a big Texas belt buckle at the end of the day. Okay,
It's called a rondelle, but yes, it's a real
rondelle.
thing.
Sure.
It is.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
it's
too.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. All right, we get the flashback. And the very first line, get him to Kelleron. That's when I screamed, Jar Jar Binks. Like, oh my God. I was standing up. I couldn't even believe, like, there's no way they're doing this. No way. Like, maybe they're just name dropping or whatever. But man, when those doors open up and like he steps through, it was just like chills. I was so excited for that. But yeah, Jedi Master Kelleron steps through. He says, everything's going to be all right, kid. He picks up one of the lightsabers of that Jedi that's fallen and, starts. I mean, we can get into the specifics if you want, but he does a really good job essentially fending off two squads. And then that third squad comes in. He's finally like, okay, we got to get out of there. They're swarming me at this point. They jump into the speeder, which just happens to have a little sidecar, which tells me this was all planned. And we'll get into this here in a little bit because I want to talk about, like, what is the point? Why Grogu? Why Kelleron? Where was he going? Right. I posted a theory out there on Twitter that we'll maybe talk about. Well, we are going to talk about it. So they take off. They're chased by two drop ships, and we had a really cool little action sequence there where we're kind of flying in and out of Coruscant. We got to see Monument Plaza again, like twice in 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, in just a week.
Or a week. Yeah, no, a week. Right. Yeah. So great to see that. And then he says, "Don't worry, we're going to meet up with some friends of mine," which they land. They have a rough landing, right, or another happy landing, I guess. Every landing's a successful landing if you think about it.
That's right.
But they get off, and standing waiting for them is essentially what looks to be Padme's ship. Although those ships have been reserved for like royalty, members of the government on Naboo. Right, it's a Naboo ship that's used for those types of things. So we can speculate whether or not that's Padme's ship or not. But nonetheless, those are Naboo soldiers that are out there standing guard. It was cool to hear the Naboo fire. Like, they have a very distinct sound when those blasters go off, and that was really nostalgic, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, so they jump in there, fend off a couple of ties or whatever it is, and then they head off into hyperspace, and we don't see them at that point. So all of that happens in a very relatively short amount of time. I think Dale was talking about how he literally was watching that scene, went to check an email or something, came back, and that scene was already over. So it was very short-lived all in. But a lot of great action stuff, a lot of stuff left for the mind to wonder, ponder, pontificate on. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, all of that, and where are they going, and what is Kelleron's role in all of this?
Well, I mean, yeah, some of the answers seem to be, it could go with some pretty obvious leaps, right? So who is his friend, first of all? if we're going to go see your friend and it happens to be a Naboo security detail waiting for him with a Naboo ship, we know who the Naboo senator is at this time as well, right?
Say it.
Jar Jar Binks is of course the thing. Now going to Naboo has its own challenges though, so I don't know if we want to jump into some of this, or maybe we'll come back to it. But
No, let's do it now because we're not going to come back to this here.
Okay, so going to Naboo has its own challenges. We know that the Empire is there. We know at the funeral of Padme, because we've had this scene already, right, in Tales of the Jedi, where they have an Empire or Imperial security detail because Naboo is a risk in some ways. They know that they're surveilling what's his name, or Senator Organa as well for his time that was there. Now, whether they've left that there and then they're in the palace or any of that, we don't really have that context. And again, what was left after Padme's funeral, but you can imagine that this would be a bit of a hotbed. So is he going to go to the capital? Maybe not, and so you start to make other connections about where Jar Jar Binks might feel comfortable with hiding people out. But again, I kind of question, like, I know there's some energy and excitement around taking him to Otoh Gunga or, with the Gungans in general. I start to wonder, like, okay, well, if you're there, how do you get out of there to where Grogu is kidnapped or stolen or whisked away, or do they even make it, type of thing. So even if it's the intention, you have to ask a bunch of questions along the way of when does Grogu actually disappear, and when is he stolen, or when is he on the Empire's radar, and some of that. So there's a lot there to speculate on and unpack. But I think the question though was Kelleran Beck looking for Grogu specifically, or did he just come upon him going back to the temple and was like, oh crap, all right, yeah, things are bad, let's just go, right? And so I'd like to think it was more general and he wasn't specifically looking for Grogu, but if he was looking for Grogu specifically, then there must be something unique. I mean, he is a unique species. We know we don't have many of this, of this type of race, right, at all. So it's important to preserve that in some ways. But again, is there some other lineage that's behind all of that? Is there some other importance to Grogu? Is there some ability? We don't think he's shown anything abnormally special. At least we've not been given that idea. But again, we don't have any context of any of that either. So, but yeah, kind of initial thoughts on that one.
Well, and I was the one. I'm probably cheerleading my own theory here, but I had said that it was definitely Jar Jar Binks's ship. When he says my friend, or a friend, that they have that relationship, and it would be cool if the same actor. It's
very meta, yeah.
It is very meta that the same actor, the two characters that he plays are good friends, right? So I think that works, and certainly feels appropriate. Now, so before I get into the other stuff, so I do think it was intentional that Kelleran, of all people, was selected to be either the custodian of Grogu in this moment, or maybe there's more to that. Like maybe he was assigned to him. He's always been assigned to him, because again, that speeder bike is not a style that we see anywhere, like with a sidecar like that. It's specifically one outfitted already with a little, baby carrier or pram or whatever they're calling it.
A buggy.
Buggy essentially, Yeah. And it looked like it was fixed. It didn't look like it was it detached or anything. So based on that, I would think.
But if he was looking for younglings or anything, then it would make sense that he would have something readily available to be able to throw kids in, right?
True. I would think if anybody's going to have those as part of their fleet, the child abducting group that the Jedi are would probably be one group that would go ahead and invest in the money for those rarities, right?
Wow. So you're going to give me crap for making fun of Grogu's running.
Hey, I have a massive problem with the Jedi abducting children. I've been pretty open about that. But
they give people the opportunity to have their child abducted.
They don't.
Come on.
No, you're fooling yourself. So, okay. So I'd like to think that Kelleran specifically was assigned to Grogu. Now, Grogu just in himself, the fact that, like you said, he's the species of Yoda and Yaddle, and there's 3 of them that we know, and even now that we've gotten some background on where we are with during the High Republic times, you could even echo legends. There aren't a lot of these things out there, so that alone is probably enough for them to have like a high security detail, or have somebody assigned just to the protection of them, or have someone assigned to the training or the oversight. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So I don't think that's unusual. Now, there could be something more. He could have a crazy midichlorian count. He could have powers that we're not aware of. He could be another half of a dyad that's soon to be discovered that we don't know about, right? Whatever you want to say, there could be something more mystical about him. But nonetheless, him rescuing him, I don't think it was by chance. I think that was purposeful, because they even said, get him to Kelleron. Like, Kelleron was like, either they already had this pre-planned, or they knew that the only person that would be able to ensure the safety of this child, and we know that they were protecting this child. I mean, they were kind of in a last stand to protect this particular youngling at the time. I think speaks to the importance of Kelleron and who he knows. Who he knows is probably somebody like Jar Jar Binks. Maybe the way my theory was going, the contingency was that in the event that they had to ensure the safety of this child, that they would take him to Naboo, and that Binks would be kind of that liaison, but they wouldn't necessarily harbor the child in Naboo in the city. I mean, they could come around the back end. You know how Star Wars works. Everybody pulls up to the front door, but we know in reality you could probably pull around the backside of the planet and get in. But my theory was that they would then take him and hide him in Gunda and make sure that no one ever finds him at that point, because that place is so far down. It's kind of like lost to civilization. I mean, I don't know where we are at that time, but I mean, that's a pretty well hidden space. Certainly better than sticking a child that was the father of or son of Anakin Skywalker on the planet he was born in. So, I mean, we're not talking an absurdity here in terms of Star Wars, history and precedents that's been set.
Yeah. So I think the other side of some of that, though, and I'm kind of reading the chat here and Lauren and stuff, and there's some theories going around about whether or not, Kelleron was actually looking for him specifically or looking for others. And I think the camp I've fallen is that Kelleron, and it goes back to the character. So Kelleron Beck trains younglings. That is his focus, right? That is his primary purpose, if you will, and his primary interest. So it would make sense that they want to get them back to the person who knows them best, can protect them, and is probably his job, right? He's probably shuttling them back and forth to and arranging some sort of way off world in this moment of extremism, of just doing anything they could do. And again, were they protecting Grogu specifically, like solely? I want to say no, that they were just defending a youngling, and there were several Jedi trying to do it. But again, I don't like making things too specific on a character, because I think in those general moments, it's easy to, because we like Grogu so much, and he is so important to our overall story now and Star Wars in general, that it makes it feel like he's that special. But again, in this moment, do we really know any of that? And would they treat him any differently than any other youngling? And my assumption would be no, hopefully a presumption that would be basically no. We want to treat all of them the same. We wouldn't prioritize this youngling over another one if we have the ability to make a difference. And so getting that to him, and again, Kelleron may not have been surprised that it was Grogu, and maybe he was the last one out. Those types of things as well, because that pram just didn't want to close or didn't want to work, whatever it may have been.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It doesn't matter in that regard, I suppose. Well, I'm sure those things will end up over time. And again, I think this is more of a waypoint for them. It's not necessarily the end destination. If they were to go to Naboo or even Gunga, I believe that there is some amount of hatred for Palpatine towards the Gungans anyway. And we know that he's not super fan of anyone that's not a human anyway. And that they kind of disrupted his blockade 20 years ago or whatever it was, is probably still sticking in his craw a little bit, so to speak. And that he would go back and torch that place and maybe send Vader to do it. Might not necessarily surprise me in that regard. We've seen in the comic books, we've seen Vader go and attack other civilizations like on Mount Cal, under the depths, hidden away. Now, granted, they have a very different, importance in things, especially militarily, medically, and things like that. But I think there's just a vendetta against the Gungans. So I don't know that it's safe to hide him away there. But to your point, is it any less safe than throwing the heir to the Skywalker lineage on the planet that his dad grew up on?
Mm-hmm.
No. We're not above that type of thing in Star Wars either, right?
Yeah, no.
Hide him in plain sight. That's our rule.
That's it. Hide in plain sight. So the way I tied this whole theory together was, we know Grogu eats a lot of amphibious creatures, frogs and all that. And I thought, okay, well, if he's with the Gungans, then we have the scene where Jar Jar is eating the frogs and all that stuff. So that would make sense that because he spent some time there, he acquired that taste of. He
refined
frogs.
His palate.
Yep.
Well, with the Gungans.
Yep. So we're getting everything explained in this little theory here.
It's like Solo all over again, isn't it?
Yeah. How he got his last name. Okay, well, so good stuff. I mean, I'm excited. I think the question that was whether or not we would see any more of Kelleron. I think we are. Like, I don't think. Well, here I said we were, and then yesterday Carl Weathers had posted something saying, and he was kind of being cheeky about it, like, "Hey, y'all, I bet you guys enjoyed I'm My Best. Wouldn't you guys want to see more of him? Who's with me?" kind of thing. And it was almost like, okay, he's almost signaling that we are going to get more of him. So, I mean, I would love that. Like, let's continue that journey. Let's follow that. I'd like to see where does he eventually take him. I think we're going to get that answered, and I think we will get answered as to some of the questions that we're talking about. Why Kelleron? Was it specific to him? Was it just that was the only one left? Do the Jedi value all kids equally or not? I think all of that will probably come out if we stay with Kelleron and we stay with Grogu and we continue on that journey of how he eventually gets to the where we see him at the very beginning of the first episode of The Mandalorian, where he's basically imprisoned by a bunch of Trandoshans, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's a far cry from where he's at right now. So somewhere somebody screwed up, or somewhere something bad happened that he was caught and captured again.
Yeah, we have enough episodes to where we could do another one of these flashback, maybe not montage. We haven't really had a proper montage, I guess, but I think to have these flashbacks and have more opportunities for them more early enough to where a second one is pretty plausible and pretty, I would almost expect it at this point.
Okay, so all right, so we get back to the present time, and this is where we get the armor making what I thought was going to be a helmet, because remember when she made the helmet for Ragnar at the very beginning, she started with that circular disc,
Right.
And this is shame on me, I'm not a blacksmith, so maybe I should know this, but I would imagine they probably all do start as circles. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a helmet. But I was like, no, that's not going to fit around that guy's melon. There's no way, it's too small. And ultimately, she turns this thing into we call it a belt buckle. What's a rondelle is the official term.
Rondell, yeah.
Yeah, and a rondelle is meant to like protect you in your weak spots, like your joints. So like armpits, knee joints.
Usually there in your armpit area is where most armor in medieval times, so that was where they was worn.
Yeah, we're like armor or joins, right? Those weak points, and so you cover it up. But then Grogu is all of about 12 inches, 6 inches tall, or whatever he is, and so this rondelle turns into like this Flavor Flav clock medallion thing that's hanging around his neck. And I'm thinking, what this is like, he's got to be super top heavy at this point. Like, I don't understand. And then like you mentioned it last night we were talking too. Like, what about the chainmail then? So what was the Beskar chainmail? Is that not good enough? Is it because it's got holes and this is a little bit, I mean, it's a solid surface? I don't know. I got a lot of questions as to why she created the rondelle of all things. She felt like this massive metal buckle thing is what he needs right now. And I'm sure they'll explain it, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's like two things. Like, so when you go, if you're a diver and you are going to wear some sort of protective gear for our sharks, protection against getting bitten and things like that, that's like the chainmail. It's protecting against vibroblades, it's protecting against any kind of cutting device, but it's not going to protect you against a blaster necessarily, right? It won't diffuse and deflect or anything like that. So it makes sense, I guess, to give him a piece of armor now. And that's something that he won't grow out of to where it's a waste either, right? So I think on some level it kind of makes sense, but why wouldn't she just make him something that kind of, fit over him? But I guess once you have a piece of armor, maybe you always have that piece of armor. Now what he'll do with the shirt, who knows? Maybe he'll just wear it as a bracelet over time. I don't know, but so, but I like the idea though that you stick with a piece of armor, you keep it. It's part of your kit. It just evolves into something else and you acquire more. And that is the Mandalorian way, right? So it's you acquire this stuff over time and it fits a different need as you develop and as you grow. But again, we know that he's not going to necessarily be a big being either. And maybe they don't know that to where is this really useful in the long run? We don't see any other Mandalorians wearing something like this, but maybe when they have it, they choose not to use it to cover joints because their joints are very exposed for the most part, but maybe they sacrifice that for, combat flexibility and to be able to have more agility.
Yeah. She says Mandalorian steel shall keep you safe as you grow stronger. You will grow into this rondelle as you grow into your station. And to your point, like maybe she's thinking, oh, he'll be at least 4 feet tall, which we know won't ever be the case. And so surely he'll be able to use this at some point. So I don't know. Now, the other thing that was interesting too is it did look like as she was making it, there was some kind of level of circuitry behind it. When she flipped it upside down, there looked like there was circuitry. So it didn't seem like just a solid piece of metal or solid piece of Beskar. So I've got, maybe, we've seen them use those little buckler shields, right? Maybe that, he can hit a button on that thing, or it activates a little bubble around him that, he can run around in and deflect bolts and stuff. Who knows? I think there's probably more to it that we're not seeing just yet, because I do just find it super odd that she would give him a big piece of metal as basically a bulletproof vest they would wear, when there's other things that he could be, wearing.
I agree.
But,
and it does seem like most of their armor does have some level of component to it that seems to be more electrical in nature, and there's a special, and I don't know whether it's just that's how they keep it to their clothes or fasten their clothes or what it might be, but I do like the idea, and I agree with you. I think there's something about it that has another ability that we're just not going to see quite yet, and what that might be. And again, maybe it's like the shield, like they wear that on their arms, on their gauntlet. Maybe he can activate it, and it does create a barrier
because he's so small. It's just all of him. It protects everything around him.
Yeah. So again, we might have already seen it just in a different application, and that's all it is. It's just you get that little round shield that goes over him for 8 inches or so all the way around.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more on what that turns out to be. Okay, so we then flip back over to what I'm calling the campfire program. So they park the cars, they walk it in, hike it into camp. And then we get this kind of like really, and this is where I felt like they were just kind of, we had to go. Like we got to transition to the next day, or did we? I guess that's the.
No, they had the campfire they ate. And so it was a great development moment also for, I think, Bo-Katan of saying, this is what you're talking about, right? When they're sitting around the campfire.
Yeah, I guess I'm questioning, like, did we have to have this? Like, because it feels like that scene was for this purpose and this purpose only. You get what I'm saying? Like, otherwise, did we have to have this scene? I don't think we did, but I understand why we did it, because it gave us the background on how the heck do they eat.
Well, also, I think it goes and it speaks to Bo-Katan that she does not know the actual lifestyle that they live, and that she needs this education that goes behind it. She really does have no idea about how to live this way. And I think it gives her a different appreciation, especially when, I think this is a really great moment for Paz Vizsla as well. I think it was important that we see this from him of saying, no, you're the leader of the pack. You have the honor of sitting by the fire and eating your meal here, with this warmth and everything else. This is the honor bestowed upon you. And I think that for her, that's a moment of recognition of like, wow, there's a certain amount of honor and respect amongst them in this caste, in the system that they apply to their way of living, and to be able to be recognized in that capacity, a complete stranger to them, or at least someone who may not have earned their respect in any other way quite yet. But for them to afford that to her is very telling, and I think it strikes her in a very unique way that she may not have been expecting. But I think on the other side of that, is it also speaks to the isolation of the Mandalorian culture. Like when you share a meal, when she, like, if you remember back when she and Din are celebrating after, or they're in the plane back, and before they get attacked, and they were thinking about, I'd invite you in for a feast, but you wouldn't remove your helmet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in our culture, sitting around a table, sharing a meal, sharing drink, sharing stories, sharing company, breaking bread, celebrating an achievement, right, is all very integral to how we interact and how our society celebrates and recognizes achievement, right? And really shows the importance of, how we view and feel about one another. And so for her to not have that feels very odd, but it's its own respect in a very different way as well. And being able to learn that and appreciate that within the context of just saying, well, how do I eat if you're all around me? This doesn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it served a few purposes, maybe very, very low level, maybe more speculative than anything else. But I think it was really important for us to see how they live, what are their values, and how do they handle some of these things, and how do they handle a newcomer, even if there was no ill will, from Paz to Bo-Katan, even being assigned as the leader for it, because again, we know it was really important to him, but also it was just not. I didn't get any kind of sense that he was envious or jealous, or didn't feel it should have been his place or something like that. It was just respect, and this is how we live. This is the way. If you want to call it that.
Yeah, the No, all good things, and that whole the idea that the war leader sits with the fire, it's the warmth, but then fire has always represented strength. It's represented safety, right? So ensuring that the leader has got the safest seat because they are the most important, right? I mean that's not lost on her, and that's what we're getting at. Is I know what you're getting at here is it's none of this is lost on her. This is doing wonders for her development and understanding the culture. The other thing that when I was watching the scene and as well, just this scene in particular, just their culture in general, like we know that Din had a special relationship with the Tusken Raiders. Knowing we know about the Tusken Raiders and their culture and now this culture, they very much align. And so you can understand why he is so respectful for them, of them, even though for the most of the galaxy, they're just a bunch of raiders and crazy expert sharpshooters. But yeah, I mean, they're not looked upon as anything but just, savages, right? According to the Lars homestead.
You do see a lot of parallels between Tuscans and their lifestyle and their values and the Mandalorians, as well as their perceptions of who they are as a people from the from the external mindset as well. It is interesting with the parallels there, and probably a whole nother thing to dive into with Boba Fett in that regard as well.
Right. Yeah, Lauren said Bo-Katan is winning them over too. Yeah, I mean, she's not making she doesn't take a wrong step in here when at all, really. I mean,
no, and she's being very respectful, and I think it takes a certain amount of self-awareness to be able to admit, hey, how do you do this? I don't know how to do this. That's got to be really uncomfortable because she's probably just wanting to take it off. And I kept waiting for her to slip up. But again, she's being very cautious. She's trying to be very respectful in her own way as well, and not kind of spit in the face of those that have given her sanctuary.
Yep. Okay, so I mean, it's a good scene. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed everything of the scene, but I thought, okay, this is why we're having the scene, because we need to get some exposition here.
Yeah, this scene actually, and the scene with her in the armor, are two of my favorite scenes in this whole episode. I mean, to be totally honest with you.
Very cool. So we get the next morning comes around, we hear that this thing has taken others. This is where I'm like, come on, guys, really? They climb the mountain, and I was thinking, man, all that Beskar, that's got to be heavy. If you've ever climbed the side,
especially poor Paz Vizsla, man. That guy's carrying about like 6 tanks worth of equipment behind him.
I know. Yeah, if you've ever scaled the side of a mountain or done rock climbing or mountain climbing, it's you realize every pound counts, right? So I can't imagine doing that with like full on Beskar. But nonetheless, it was just a funny moment. So they get to the very top. Mando sees the heat signature with his special fancy helmet that I guess nobody else has. And no, it's here where he says he's my son. Sorry, I said that. I misspoke there earlier. This is where we learn that this is Paz's son, because Paz gets up to kind of go after it. And, Bo's like, dude, like, hold on, but makes sense that he would do that. Mama Pterodactyl, whatever, shows up. He throws the brush on himself to camouflage himself at that point and to hide. And then one of the most disgusting scene is him, like, Ragnar getting regurgitated. Like,
when I saw it rear up, I was like, no way. Are they actually going to do this? Like, I jumped to it immediately. I was like, you're kidding me that we're actually going to regurgitate. Like, what shape is this kid going to be?
I know. I thought he was going to be, like half digested or look like a fur ball of some sort.
Right. Because that's the disconnect, right? With birds, they do this because they need to help pre-digest the food so that the little birdlings or whatever they're called, can do it more easily, right? They don't just store it, I don't think, unless my biology history lesson is off here, but I'm pretty sure it's designed to help pre-digest the food.
I think so too. I think it's I'm with you. I think that's how it works. But what do we know? We're just podcasters and not biologists. So
that's true.
And then we get this really wonderful father-son time, this moment here where Paz and Ragnar get to spend some quality time. Paz gets, I guess, he gets bitten, right? He gets in the mouth of.
Yeah, it comes down and grabs him and then grabs his son with the claw.
With the claws, yeah. And so they go off on a little journey together. And then we get this whole action sequence, which I thought was good. I mean, there was moments where the CGI was kind of like, or there was some blurring that was going on. It was kind of hard to follow at times. The way I interpret this was they were using those cables to tie down its wings and kind of keep it from being able to flap and bring it down in that way. But there were some good moments here. Bo-Katan's attempt to try to rescue the child, what she did by, run. I think she came at it with what was it? She stabbed it with a blade or some sort.
Yeah, she stabbed that thing in the eye. Of course, she got slapped around. Of course, lost her pauldron in the process. But yeah, and then the pterodon dropped it, and she was already, I think, plummeting as well. But she went and grabbed the kid.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. I forgot. Lauren's also a biology major. Birds of prey eat the food immediately and tear it up. Okay. So what? Not this time. Not in Star Wars. No, I would agree. Like this is where I felt like it was a suspension of disbelief, only because we're applying our own knowledge about what birds of prey would do. But that thing would have ripped that child up and fed it pieces to those babies, and not just held onto it whole without a scratch on them. But maybe there is.
Well, those babies had teeth though, so maybe it was a learning opportunity for them to be able to shred their own food. It's like learning to cut with a knife.
Yeah. Okay, so I gotta keep going to the comments because Mando then flies in at it with his vibro knife, stabs it. He frees Ragnar and flies down, picks up Ragnar, saves him at the very last minute, and then we get the big splashdown where the mama falls into the water, and presumably he's dead. I mean, I would imagine she just drowned.
The croc came out.
Oh, that's right. The croc came in at the very end there.
Always a bigger fish.
Yeah, always a bigger fish.
Or a reptile, I guess.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's dead. It's dead. I forgot about that.
Which was really telling. Did you expect the new foundlings to come out of the ship though when they return back to base?
I didn't at all.
But I was like, this makes perfect sense though. Like you've lost your tribe, and the Mandalorian culture is you bring them and you give them a new family. See, they're just like the Jedi, kidnapping children for your own purposes.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I said the meaning of this title. I mean, that's probably a far stretch, right? That they're youngling or they're foundlings, but I mean, I guess you could apply it to the birds, but you can apply it to Grogu. You can apply it to Ragnar. You could apply it to Bo-Katan in some ways, right? Because she is learning just like as a child would learn, because she's not really been a part of this culture. Right. So it does take on different meanings. But no, I mean, I was not expecting them to do that. Now that they're there, and the way, I forget what the line was, they said something about that led us to believe that, oh, wow, they're going to mount these things at some point. They're going to raise these things, use them as flying creatures. And so now we've got, like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so now we've got a mythosaur that either Bo-Katan and or Mando are going to ride. You've got, in my action figure theory, you've got Boba Fett coming in with his Rancor. You got these three, like, it's just like monster, like Battle of the Monsters, Godzilla style at some point, which is, again, par for course in terms of where we are in the era of where these guys grew up in, right? I mean, it just feels like it's going to be all monster, or like, kind of like Return of the Jedi, where it was technology versus primitives, or, animals and that sort of thing. So right. I'm excited. I hope we get to see these things grow. And I don't know how fast they grow. There's going to be a massive time jump if we're going to wait, 15, 20 years before they're of size.
It's curious. Like, where the hell are we going with all of this? Like, where are you going? What's the application for all of these things? You're going to go fight TIE bombers and TIE interceptors with dragons and reptiles, or what's the plan here?
Well, sadly, the next episode actually has them using them in battle, and they've not grown. So they've just saddled these poor babies, and they ride them in to their deaths in upcoming battle here. So
all right, well,
I hate to spoil that, but
thanks for the spoiler alert. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I probably should have said that first. Okay, no, all kidding aside, I did love that moment where he says, "I'm okay, Dad." And then he looks over and says, "Thank you" to Mando. And he says, we get that this is the way, this is the way. By the way, this is the way. I saw somebody talking about its uses on, I don't know where it was, somewhere. They were talking about the uses of this is the way and how it has a universal meaning. We have this in the Hispanic culture as well, and it's called orale. You can use orale for just about anything. And it means a lot of different things. So that's a joke. I know you're probably not laughing because you got to know what I'm talking about, but there you go.
I just use hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Or F yeah. Or, that's probably another one you could probably use for a lot of different things. Essentially, it's the same stuff, right?
Right.
All right. Enough of that. Okay. So, yeah. And so when the armorer is talking to Bo-Katan and says that, she's honored her house. I mean, that probably was eye-opening for her, right? And not only that, but she's honored all of Mandalore with the highest honor of Creed, which is saving a foundling. That was like, it feels like that is the equivalent of a Medal of Honor that we would bestow on somebody here in the U.S. and, in military, meaning you save someone's life. I mean, that's the highest honor that you can receive.
Yeah. yeah, Purple Heart type of thing.
Yeah, Purple Heart kind of thing for living through a war too, right? Yeah, and then Bo's response though, like her saying this is the way, and like it was, I mean, it was unconscious. There was no hesitation in her saying that, and so I got a lot of questions as to where this is going, because I think originally I was on board with her bending, making them bend a knee, right, and moving away from these very rigid kind of formalities or the dogma.
Let's not let go of that theory though quite yet, because I think it ties into why does she want the signet of the mythosaur on her pauldron then?
Yeah. No, and I'm with you. Like it still lines in with the theory of, like, we talked about, for her, this was going to be an opportunity for her to kind of start seeing the group, right? She's lived in her bubble for so long as,
right,
I'm the heiress. All it means to rule is I just need to have the sword. That's it. I don't care what the people think. I don't care if they fall in line with it. I don't need to know anything about their culture. I can even look down on their culture. I have the sword. I'm the person that should rule. That's how we said, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago, this is where she was coming from. But this is going to be, this seems like it is starting to turn into a very development opportunity for her to start seeing that I can't rule that way, right? That only gets me so far. Truly ruling is going to be being open and, respectful of all of the cultures and finding that commonality between all of them. And so for her adopting that signet of the mythosaur, I think is that very first step, because even like, the armorer says, anybody can wear this. Doesn't matter what clan you're in. This is this is what it means to be Mandalorian. This is the through line for all of Mandalorians. And so for her to bear that, I think that's a big step for her, because she's, accepting that she is maybe not necessarily a child of the Watch, but she is accepting that she is part of a bigger group of people called the Mandalorians. And I honestly don't know that she's ever really thought it in those terms before.
And then let's go back to the quote earlier. So what was the quote with Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin to Ragnar?
I'm okay, Dad. Thank you. This is the way. That one?
No, the one where, like, with silence and speaking.
Oh, very at the beginning. Let's see. Someone's probably going to throw it before. One does not speak unless that one knows.
Right. And so when it comes to, like, it applies to Bo-Katan as well, right? Of saying that you can't go and you can't criticize them of saying, just wave the sword around, anybody will follow it, or these zealots, with their not removing the helmet, like, she doesn't know. And so her ability to speak has not yet been earned, because she doesn't have the experience, or she doesn't have the exposure to it. She doesn't have that appreciation. She hasn't lived it and understood it well enough before she has cast judgment on all these other people. And it applies to both, right? I mean, it applies to, this is the value of what these people have. This is earning respect is just as important as having a weapon that exemplifies leadership in some way, at least as the outward representation of it. Is more of a rallying cry of sorts, right? And again, that's where we talked to the last few weeks of whether or not the mythosaur becomes maybe not a replacement, but another symbol of all of that too. Of this is another way of exemplifying that leadership. And why does it have to be one or the other? Mythosaur or a Darksaber are only those two combined. Why can't it be one on each, or one with each, right? Why can't it evolve to something else? But I like that the dual meaning, like the meaning of that phrase, one does not know, and so she didn't know, and now she is starting to have that veil lifted.
Yeah.
And to be able to see that and have a better appreciation for what it does mean. And again, this is something we all share, a commonality of our culture of being able to wear, the signet of the mythosaur. And it's not necessarily, doesn't have to mean I got this because of my seeing of it. And I was really excited that she actually said something to the armorer, right? And the armorer, I think, viewed it as something totally different, of course, right? She thought it was more of a vision, because no one's seen a mythosaur in 1,000 years or whatever it is, right? And so, but to be able to be open with her, and again, those walls kind of coming down and being more vulnerable of, I'm not going to be, like, if there's anybody that's going to give me a little bit of leeway here of believing me,
yeah,
it's going to be this person who is the most zealous of all of these people, right? Yeah. Like, if there's anybody that would have if she's going to strike me down, it's going to be her. But if she's going to give me counsel, it's also going to be this person as well. And so I was really excited when she came forward and asked her opinion. What if you saw it? And again, she didn't really answer the questions, right? Well, what if I saw Mythosaur? Well, that's an honor to receive that kind of vision. Well, no, what if it was real? this is the way. You get to see, when you believe and you walk the way, you see things that others don't, and you are afforded opportunities that others are not. And it could be giving credibility to Bo-Katan. Like, you are finally earning your place that you were given and you were handed over as a princess and as your birthright. You were actually earning your birthright in order to truly fulfill your destiny. And it for me, it refocused my, like, Bo-Katan seems like she will be the leader of the group, or at the very least, she will be one of those people who dictates who the leader will be, right? And Din Djarin is quickly sliding off that scale for me, because we just keep refocusing on Bo-Katan, and maybe that's a misleading thing, but to me, she's the one learning these lessons and actually taking them to heart and trying to apply what this actually means to a grander scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I said last week that I was starting to come off that horse. I think I'm shifting towards Bo-Katan, and for all the right reasons. Like you said, everything that's happened in this scene, in this episode particularly, makes me want her to be the leader again of Mandalore. So that whole scene there at the very end too, and I'm glad I had the question in here of, like, why the armor. You made a good point. Like, it just felt like at that point, that was the one person that, I mean, she's shown her a lot of respect. She's kind of come around to her. Like, I almost feel like if anybody's going to give me a straight answer, right, this person, I can trust this person. Even though I may not agree with her, I can trust this person's at least going to give me an honest answer. And if anybody believes in this stuff, it's definitely going to be them. So I did enjoy that she opened up to the armor before she opened up to, like, Din, right, or anybody else about this thing. I did have a chuckle though, because when you at the very end, when you walk the way of the Mandalore, you will see many things. And she says, but it was real. And the armorer says, this is the way. To me, that was the equivalent of, okay, Grandma, let's get you back to bed kind of thing. Like, you've lost your mind. There's no way you saw a mythosaur. And I still wonder if she does believe her. I have a feeling it's going to come up again, maybe now, because she didn't feel like the armor was as receptive, or didn't believe her, right? And it was just kind of thinking it from a vision perspective only. That maybe she does now at this point. It feels like she's probably going to go to Din and do the same thing. Like, hey, I saw something. I've talked to the armorer about it. What do you think? And I mean, I don't know how we get back there. Like, I'm so, like, twisted around now, halfway through the series, or halfway through this season. And, we've got to still go back to Navarro. I don't know how we do that. Maybe it's the pirates. I don't know. But I'm starting to wonder, like, are we going to have enough? Is there enough time here to really get to the story of Mandalore and what threat and what brings a group together? Maybe this is a season 4 thing, and that season 3 was really, for Bo's perspective, was really about reestablishing a potential leader of Mandalore that can then bring them together either in another series or season 4 of this series. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like we got a whole lot of time here.
So let's rewind. So you don't think the armor believed Bo-Katan? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I still don't believe it.
Okay, I do. I think she does. I think it's more like a religious type of response of saying, when you open yourself truly and fully, you will experience and you will see things that you weren't prepared. You are now prepared to be able to do them, but you weren't otherwise able to see until now. And I don't know why the armorer would have kind of a duplicitous comment, because she's usually pretty quick to spar with someone, especially if we're going to debate the way in some ways. And so while the armor might have a difficult time believing it in some ways, I don't know that she doubts that Bo-Katan believes exactly what she thinks she saw. And why would you doubt her at that point? You've been to the living waters. Something unique happened down there. This person is behaving in a very different way than they always have. Something has clearly rattled Bo-Katan. And so I think she does believe her. And I think that comment for her is just the whole "this is the way" comment. Like, this is what happens whenever you walk the way. You are now ready to accept the gifts of the Mandalorian way, and some people are chosen, and maybe she's the chosen one type of mentality.
Oh boy, yeah, no, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is, there was the way she said it it wasn't conclusive to me. Like, it can go either way for me. I'm not saying she did or didn't. I just don't. When she said "this is the way," I got nothing from her other than just "this is the way." So Yeah, I can see where for her she did believe it, or she didn't. I don't know one way or the other. I think we'll obviously find out.
Yeah.
But
And Dale had a good comment on it. It was compared to a member of the church going to their priest and saying, I saw God, or I had some divine intervention or moment. And the priest says, you are blessed. And it was very much like that. It was in that same vein. But I think for her, it means something a little bit different.
yeah. So the other comment he said was, "How did it look? How big?" She got nothing, and that's what I mean. It's just like it just ended there. And I'm not saying one way or the other that she did or didn't believe. It's just the way it ended. Her saying this is the way. I don't know. We'll find out in the next episode. Like they were probably out of time. They wanted to end on a high note or a real dramatic note, and that's probably the best way to do it. But the other thing I will say though, in I can see both sides. In defense of her believing it, she is the one that uttered the prophecy, right? That someday somebody would rise, that the mythosaur would rise again and bring in a new era of Mandalorian. So those are her words. So if anybody's going to be on board and believe like conspiracy theories or these crazy things that suddenly a mythosaur is alive, I mean, it would be somebody like the Armorer.
And I get it. It's a difficult thing to come around. You don't expect these things. You do expect them to be of lore, right? Or these are just prophecies. The likelihood that they will ever come true, much less in your lifetime, just seems so astronomical to where you don't even entertain that it's possible. But again, sometimes, and I think to be fair, sometimes you're the biggest believers and the biggest advocates are the very first ones to strike down anybody that has false, claims of false prophet, right? That type of thing of saying that you've seen this, you've done it, and no, you haven't. That's absolutely ridiculous. You're just wanting to, you're trying for a power grab. You're trying to inspire, trying to break apart our people. But again, what we're seeing here is something totally different. So I'm not sure about that, but I'm with you. I hope we see this evolve. I think her inclusion with the team, and this is where some concern of mine is as well. I think where you were kind of getting to, like, we have all these other stories we know are going to come about throughout the rest of the season. So how do we continue these moments? The good news is that we see the Mandalorians in these other scenes, like when we go back to Navarro and all of that. So the opportunity that diverse conversation and even the impact of the armor and her interpretation in these discussions, there's still opportunity for it, even if it's a little unclear how it might continue or where it might continue. It's still, they're still together and rooted. They've not completely separated and parted ways or anything like that.
Yep. Well, we'll end it there. I mean, we've got a couple. There were the questions that I had. I think we've already answered. Will we see Kelleron again? What's happening to Bo? I think we've covered both of those. Does the Armorer believe Bo? We just talked about that one. But the only other thing that still remains is, where does Din go from here? Like, he does feel like he was kind of sidelined, if you think about it, in this episode. I mean, he had his moment where he saved the child and he put Grogu in the position to do the training. But if you really think about it, he really was not front and center, and that's not a bad thing because I think the episode was enjoyable all around. But what's next for him? And I don't even know the answer to that. Like, at this point, and there's been a lot said here recently too, that season 3 feels very different. And I agree. Like, season 1 and 2 were very clean cut. We knew what we wanted. Season 1 was all about protecting the child. Season 2 was all about getting the child somewhere, right? We knew the objectives earlier on. And I think what's really like having people scratch their heads or feeling uncomfortable about this season is, I don't know that we have a clear cut. There's a lot of things that are happening still, and we don't know exactly. We don't have like a single objective that we're marching towards for the season. It feels like a lot of different objectives. And part of that is just the natural story development for 3 seasons and all these characters and all this background stuff they've given us. This is all kind of goes with the territory first, right? And then second, we've got, larger narratives that are starting to be seeded and probably being woven into this. And we didn't have that with season 1 and season 2. And so I think those two things are probably contributing to this uneasy feeling of like, where's this thing going? Like, why does it not feel like season 1 or season 2? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's a more complex thing. And I would expect that to be the case, especially going into, our 3rd, 4th season now of the series.
Yeah, I agree. It's really difficult to understand exactly. We've already had Mandalore. There's something to go back to Mandalore for, but what are we going to do with it? What does it actually mean? Where do the Mandalorians want to be? They don't really have any direction overall except to remain in the shadows. We don't really understand what motivates them except for kind of their sense of family. but we don't know that there's a rejuvenation or any kind of true progression of the Mandalorian culture going on, or any desire to, from that respect. So you're right. There's a lot of uncertainty in that regard about what is the ultimate destination that we're trying to get to, and so we can be on board with that journey. But I think it's also an exercise in enjoying the journey as well, and understanding, like, letting the story come to you, and to a bit, almost like you are these characters in some ways, where we don't they don't know where they're going either.
Yeah.
And so we're all kind of figuring it out as we go, not from a showrunner perspective, not to be confused in that way, that there's no direction for the show, but us as viewers with the characters, that we're not telegraphing everything as much either about where we know we need to end up, and we'll just fill in the blanks. It truly does feel like an open-ended question. It just feels like we are living life as we go, and experiences that as we go. And I see it both ways. I enjoy it both ways.
Yeah.
And I think for this season, I'm trying not to think too much about where is it going ultimately, because it'll probably weigh my opinion down, but I'm not losing any enjoyment from some of this stuff. And so being able to see, and I think it affords you the opportunity to be able to absorb and linger in these moments if you want to. Right. And I'm enjoying that Filoni and Favreau are giving this the opportunity to at least live in these moments, even if just for a short period of time with the shorter episodes here. But, we at least have that opportunity to be able to enjoy some of it. To go back to your original point about Din, though, I think Din's still critical, though. I think him and Bo clearly have a really good relationship. She values him on several different levels. I think they enjoy each other's company. Take that with what you want to on that front. But it is an opportunity for her to have an advocate, but also him to feel, he's giving her something now too. He's leading her, like, in the path, in the way of the Mandalore as well. And so he's not just, just a co-fighter or someone to run the river with type of thing. Like, he's actually showing her as a bit of a guide and someone that she can treat as a confidant as well. He's not just leaning on her and her being the grown up. Now she's having to lean back on him and saying, hey, help me understand, like, what is it? How do I navigate these waters? Because this is something I have zero experience with. And what I thought I knew, I'm having to cast that aside because I don't know what this really means. And clearly I've never known what it means to walk the way of the Mandalore. And so it's a partnership in that kind of way. And so I think she sees a lot of benefit in that relationship. And I think this is going to evolve into their story of sorts, rather than it just be Din Djarin's story like it has been, or Din Djarin with Grogu. Now it's becoming more of a
power couple.
I hesitate to say a clan of three, but I mean it's evolving a bit into that way.
Yeah,
a little bit. We'll see where it goes, but I think I do like that there's a special bond and connection there with these three characters now.
Yeah,
and that we're not sacrificing any of that as she goes through this kind of spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. He is going to be along that journey with her. And so that will be good for his development, given, like you said, he's not really known a lot of this stuff. So never even been to Mandalore. Cool. All right. Well, again, we turned to 26, the shortest episode ever, and probably our longest Mando coverage episode ever. So, not
even close.
Well done, sir. Not even close. That's true. We did do over 2.5 hours on one of them, I think, at one point. Okay. All right. Well, all good things. I'm looking forward to the next episode. We don't have the title. I don't know that we'll get the title, honestly, because it was a Carl Weathers release, right. Or he broke the silence on that one. So not something that they always do. But I'm excited to see where this thing goes in the next episode. Really enjoy this. And again, hats off to Ahmed Best for coming back with a fury.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And speaking of coming out with a fury, Lauren has a new Jedi novel archive out there for Cataclysm, which is the beginning of the third wave. Got it right this time. The third wave of the High Republic Phase 2. If that's not confusing, I don't know what is, but hey, This is how we're going to do things these days. So this is the kind of the final act of what we can expect in Phase 2 kicking off. So we've come off the Battle of Jeddah. So she's got her spoiler-free review out there, Cataclysms by Lydia Kang. So you'll want to go out there and check that out over on cantinacast.com/YouTube. We'll get you that, as well as, of course, Battle Scars, which has just been a fantastic review and awesome reception. A lot of great comments, so keep those coming as well. Again, we've got a new editorial out there, to The Path to the Dark Side, that Stephanie did. Apparently, there's a rumor that Lauren is motivated to do another Jedi tutorial article as well.
I started mine over the weekend.
I hope y'all need to align on this one because I have a feeling y'all are working in similar directions a little bit.
No, mine's not. No, we've already talked about it. She knows what mine is. I know what hers is, but we're not.
Okay,
we're not doing the same things.
Awesome.
We're good.
All right. So go check those out on the website as well. CantinaCast.com gives you everything. It's also got the podcast episodes out there if you prefer to listen rather than have YouTube up or anything like that. I get that as well. So appreciate that. If you'd like to come watch the show and interact with us live, Sundays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Central, if you're able to swing it, we're at CantinaCast.com/YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel. You get the little bell for notifications. You get a notification about half hour before we go on air. So you never miss an episode and you can talk with us just like these wonderful people. Nase, Gary, Jonathan, Dale, Lauren, Sky, Steph, Miss Sunflower, Jeff, Jorge, anybody else I may have missed in the process. We appreciate you coming out. Anybody that's lingering in the background watching, we certainly appreciate it. And as a friendly reminder, we are trying to get another Q&A show ready to go. And I imagine this will explode once we get out of celebration here. But go ahead and get those questions in. CantinaCast.com/question. As soon as we have enough questions, we'll put together a show there. Again, we've got a lot of great stuff coming with celebration. So we imagine a lot of questions coming from that too. But go ahead and get your questions in. If you have more than one, you can come back and do it again. No problem on that front. Again, CantinaCast.com/question. Just a real short form. Plug in what you got there. Let us know who you are. And we will be sure to get in the log.
Okay. Well done. I think you covered everything.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Okay. Again, thanks everybody for being here for the live show. And we'll be back to do this in a couple days because we've got a really great episode of The Bad Batch. Again, it sucks that they saved him, but for the last part of the series. And then not to mention that next week, by the way, that is the last episode of The Bad Batch because we're going to get both of them at the same time. So
that's right.
We've only got really 2 more big breakdowns of The Bad Batch. So a lot of good things happening there, a lot of exciting things, a lot of sad things, a lot of tension starting to grow. Let's just, it's everything I think we were hoping we would get. So we're there and we can't wait to talk about it. So please join us on Sunday, 9 p.m. Central, so we can do so. And with that, we'll see you guys here in just a few days.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.